Hi everybody, welcome to another segment of A Course in Miracles Applied. Today's topic is called the healing of the belief that attack is salvation. And we're going to go through a couple of quotes, paragraphs, sections in the Course that talk about it. This statement that the healing of the belief that attack is salvation has kind of two layers to it. And we'll talk about the first layer, which is basically the attack itself. And attack is just another word for projection, right? Where we take the guilt that we believe is within us, this belief in guilt, and we project it outward because we want to get rid of it. So we want to project it outward, and then we see it in the other person, and we're angry at the other person, for example, and that is the attack. And the second layer would be that is the reason why we attack, because we believe it is our salvation. And that you know that I'm not making this up. There is, for example, there's a bunch of lines where it actually says that, and chapter 13 is has two lines that say the same thing. One is chapter 13, section 3, paragraph 2. It says, "You believe that attack is salvation." And then there's another one, chapter 13, section 2. It says, chapter 13, section 1. "The ego believes in atonement through attack, being fully committed to the insane notion that attack is salvation." And it's just a different way of looking at it to realize that we believe that when we attack somebody, it is because that will save us from something. And we can expand the attack to saying, for example, judgment. Because judgment is attack, right? We're judging somebody else. That is attack. There's an attack. And we think that judgment is our salvation. You know, it doesn't just happen. Even though it seems to be that it is just coming out of us and we're judgmental, and we're trying desperately not to be judgmental when we're course students, and we can't really get to that point where we don't judge unless we realize, or until we realize, we have the full realization what the purpose of the judgment is. It's not just a little thing. You know, otherwise we would be able to stop it very easily. But it is so ingrained in us, and it is ingrained in us because we believe it will save us. Literally, it will save us. So I'm turning on the lights. We literally believe that our judgment will save us from certain death. We believe it's our salvation. It's not. It's not arbitrary. It's not for any lesser reason. We believe it saves us. So if we want to, as every course student eventually wants to, we must come to the conclusion and say, you know what, I don't want to judge anymore. There's too much judgment in my thinking about others, right? and we try not to judge, or we try not to attack, we try not to get angry, we try to kind of, as if there would be like a smoldering fire and we want to stamp it out. We're concentrating on the attack or on the judgment, and we're trying not to do that anymore. And as the Course says at some point, eventually those means work. It says here in chapter 18, section 7, paragraph 5, when peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving into sin, when the light comes at last into the mind given to contemplation, or when the goal is finally achieved by anyone, it always comes with just one happy realization: I need do nothing. So the trying to stop our judgment, trying to stop being angry, trying to stop attacking would be the equivalent of trying to do something. Right? We have to stop the ego in some way. And if this would be a different spirituality, it would work. And the Course, really the one thing that the Course tells us that it promises us is to save us time. So the longer way would be to try to concentrate on the attack, try to not attack, try to not judge, try to not get angry, try to not get jealous, try to let go of things that we don't want anymore, and things of that nature. Right? The Course way, the way with the Course, would be the second level. That we look at the purpose the judgment serves, the purpose the anger serves. What is it for? Right? It is one of the deeper lines in the Course. And he asks that in many different ways. I'm just looking for one that is just one sentence. Basically, what is the purpose, right? It's the one question that we always should ask ourselves in any situation. What is it for? Chapter 17, section 6, setting the goal. In paragraph 2, it says, in any situation in which you are uncertain, the first thing to consider very simply is, what do I want to come of this? What is it for? So rather than concentrating on working at not judging or not being angry, or not doing all the things we're doing, or thinking all the things we're thinking, right? The better question is, what is it for? What does it do? Right? Why am I attacking in the first place? Why am I angry in the first place? Why am I upset in the first place? And that would lead us to the layer below that, more superficial layer of saying, I want to get rid of my judgment, or I want to stop judging. And the trick is not the trick, but the core thought here is that the Course tells us why we are attacking, why we are judging, right? Why we're upset. Because we believe attack is salvation. It saves us. And on first glance, it's a little bit like, what are you talking about? Why would it save us? Why would attack save me? And there are two ways of looking at it. They seem to be separate, and then they come together at the end. The one way would be the guilt, as I've said, and as the Course says, the guilt is so acute that it needs to be projected, right? So this experience of guilt is so intense that we're experiencing. That's why we need to project it. We need to get rid of it, and that is what the attack does. Right? The attack pushes the guilt into the other person. The same with the judgment. The judgment gets whatever we judge within us, which is the thought that we have destroyed heaven. We place that on the outside, and then we judge somebody because of something, because of how they look, what they say, who they are as a person, what they believe, what their political views are. And we judge them, and we believe it's because of that. And when the Course says you're never upset for the reason you think, we could transfer that and say you never judge for the reasons you think, right? You never attack for the reason you think. There's a purpose to our attack. We're doing the judgment because we believe it will save us. And that thought, or that belief that attack is salvation, we can't really dismiss it. The thought that attack is salvation is what made this world. It says here in the workbook, in part 2, what is the world? It says this world was made as an attack on God. Right? We didn't want God to come into the world, so we made this world so that he cannot enter. It was like the biggest defense that we could come up with is to make the world and then identify with this one person in the world with all the problems and issues and stuff that we have, so that God could never find us. Right? That is the attack on God. This world was made as an attack on God, and this is a correction to the biblical Christian belief that God made the world. And the Course says, no, the world was made as an attack on God. It symbolizes fear, and it is an attack on God. And we're going just one step above that attack and asking the question, why? Right? Why am I attacking? Why am I judging? What is the reason for it? And when the Course says you believe attack is salvation, that is something we should look at. Just think about it. If we believe attack is salvation, that means it's a life or death situation, right? It's not just a little thing. It's not just like, oh, I'm judging this person because of their looks, or because they're a different race or a different religion or different belief system. No, it is much, much bigger than we think it is, right? It is because we believe if I judge you, I will be saved. I will not die, and you will die. It's not that I want you to die, but I want to stay alive. So I believe, and we all believe, that if we believe the ego, we believe if I don't attack you, I will die. Quite literally, I will die. And this is not conscious, right? We think we judge the other person because of how they look, for example, or what they say. Right? And then we realize, okay, this is a little bit shallow. It's probably a little deeper. You know, if I judge them, it must be something within myself I judge and I put it on them. That's also okay. But that's still not the actual reason. Right? I believe if I stop judging, I will die. God will destroy me. That is why Jesus says, we believe attack is salvation. It will literally save us from the wrath of God, or what we believe the wrath of God is. And that would, if we would think about that, it would put us into a mindset of forgiveness for ourselves. It would take the pressure off. Because we make the pressure, and we give Jesus the pressure, and we believe Jesus tells us not to judge, not to attack, not to get angry, not to get jealous, not to get upset, not to have attachments. Right? We truly believe Jesus tells us that because we can read the Course in a certain way that makes us believe he says, stop judging, stop attacking. And he says that sometimes, you know, it's like a coach. Come on, give me 10. You can do it. You know, you can, if you don't judge, you will realize how much you love your brothers. I don't know where that line is, where he says you have no concept of the relief you will feel if you meet all your brothers without judgment. Right? That gives us a little motivation to work on it. But it's not enough to just say, okay, I'm going to stop judging. Right? Because there's a purpose for the judging. If we don't realize the purpose for the judgment, we will continue to judge because we don't know why we're judging. We have to stop the why. We have to stop the reason for judgment. There's a really good paragraph in chapter 20, section 8, that can be applied to a lot of different things, like judgment, anger, and such. In this one, Jesus talks about hallucinations. He says, one thing is sure. Hallucinations serve a purpose, and when that purpose is no longer held, they disappear. Therefore, the question never is whether you want them, which is the hallucinations, but always, do you want the purpose that they serve? It's so clear, and we can put that sentence onto all those other things that we were just talking about. For example, if you say, one thing is sure, attack serves a purpose. And when that purpose is no longer held, it disappears. Therefore, the question is never, do you want the attack? But always, do you want the purpose that attack serves? Right? It makes it so clear that the attack is an effect. And we can't deal with effects. If we try to change the effect, it is a useless undertaking. We must begin to realize what the purpose of the attack is, and then we can work on that. You know, I'm going to read this again just with another one, judgment. One thing is sure, judgment serves a purpose. And when that purpose is no longer held, it disappears. Therefore, the question never is whether you want judgment, but always, do you want the purpose that judgment serves? Right? It's very clear. And the purpose is always salvation. Right? If we believe judgment will save us, if we believe anger will save us, if we believe attack will save us, then we can begin the question and say, okay, what will it save me from and why? Right? That question really gets to the core of the ego thought system. The ego does not want us to ask that question. Right? It would much rather have us work on judgment until the end of days. Right? Because it knows we can never stop judging unless it becomes crystal clear in our mind what the judgment is for. And the ego knows that. So it says, fine, work on not judging. And you can even pretend that you're not judging anymore. Or you're not getting angry anymore. Right? The problem is, if we wouldn't have those things, we would only feel all-encompassing love for everything and everyone. If we don't feel that, there must be hidden judgment that we don't want to look at, because if the moment we look at it, not looking at just, oh, I'm judging this person. No, looking at it means I'm judging this person because I believe this is my salvation. I think it will save me. To give the guilt to this person, I believe will save me. That's what starts to our mind to start thinking about. And once we question the ego, we're almost at the end. Right? Questioning, the ultimate question is to question our belief in sin. Right? That will be the ultimate question. And we're getting there when we remove those layers. Right? We remove the first layer that says, I'm just judging you because you're not dressed well. The second layer is, I'm judging you because I must judge myself. The third layer is, I'm judging you because I think this will save me. And the fourth layer is, why is that and from what? And why is it? Because I believe I'm so sinful. And it will save me from what is from God. So we're just peeling back the layers from one layer to the next, and we end up, like we always do, with the belief in sin that is the core of our problems. Right? Without the belief in sin, there would not be a need. We would not need salvation. Because if there's no sin, that means the separation has not occurred, which means God is not after us. Which means we don't need judgment. We don't need anger. We don't need any of those things. So chapter 13 basically gives us a good, especially chapter 13, section 3, the fear of redemption, gives us a very clear understanding of why we believe attack is salvation. And there's a really nice paragraph. I'm going to read the whole thing. It's paragraph 2, chapter 13, section 3. I think we've read that many times before, but this is good to put it in this context. It says, under the ego's dark foundation is the memory of God. And it is of this that you are really afraid. For this memory would instantly restore you to your proper place. And it is this place that you have sought to leave. Your fear of attack is nothing compared to your fear of love. You would be willing to look even upon your savage wish to kill God's Son, which is the attack, if you did not believe that it saves you from love. For this wish caused the separation, and you have protected it because you do not want the separation healed. You realize that by removing the dark cloud that obscures it, your love for your Father would impel you to answer his call and leap into heaven. You believe that attack is salvation because it would prevent you from this. For still deeper than the ego's foundation, and much stronger than it will ever be, is your intense and burning love of God and his for you. This is what you really want to hide. Right? So we believe attack is salvation, and it saves us from this burning love of God and his for you. So here's the caveat. That's kind of a little bit of a catch-22. That's why the ego is a foolproof system. In general, we are afraid of the memory of God because we believe we're so sinful. Without this belief in sin, this fear of this burning, intense and burning love of God and his for you, this fear would not be there. So basically what it is we are the Son of God. Right? The Course says we are the Son of God. And we are completely woven into the ego. We have married the ego. We have a mind melt with the ego. And what keeps this whole thing going is this belief in sin. Right? The belief in sin, the guilt, is what keeps us clinging to the ego, because we believe the guilt is so strong and so real that if we let go of the ego, and we will remember God, and we will be vanished. Right? Because we're so connected to the ego, we can't simply just separate from it and float back up to God. Right? Otherwise we would have done it. Right? So something is holding us back. And the issue is twofold. One is we believe we are the ego. Right? We have so melted with the ego that we believe we are the ego. And the ego's fear is that we decide against it and leap into the arms of God. Right? The ego is afraid that we withdraw the power that we gave it via our decision for it. But while we're meshed up with the ego, identified with the ego, we feel the ego's fear as if it was our own. And while we believe the ego, which says you're sinful, we believe that this love that we're so attracted to and is so strong will completely wipe us out. Right? The drop of water returning into the ocean, it would just disappear. We're not there yet to realize we are part of the ocean. The ocean is us. We're just a little part. We think we will dissolve, and this little I, which is the ego, will no longer exist. Right? You realize that by removing the dark clouds that obscure it, your love for your Father would impel you to answer his call and leap into heaven. You believe that attack is salvation because it would prevent you from this. Right? We believe attack is salvation because the attack stops us from realizing the love that is there between us and our brothers. The judgment that we place in between us and our brothers, that judgment is there to save us, because without the judgment, all that would be left is love. And we believe we would just sweep us away and we would be gone. You have built your whole insane belief system because you think you would be helpless in God's presence, and you would save yourself from his love because you think it would crush you into nothingness. You are afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little. Because we believe in littleness, because we believe so much in the ego. And the reason we believe in the ego is because of this belief in sin. So if we have an equation, in the equation with the ego is the belief in sin. If we take out the belief in sin, the ego will disappear. If the ego disappears, there cannot be any more fear of God, because there's nothing that stops us from leaping into his arms. So the ego without sin cannot exist, right? So our belief in sin and the subsequent experience of guilt is all we need to work on. Right? So that is at the core of the whole layer upon layer upon layer. Right? If we have the judgment of the other person because they're dressing wrong, would be the first layer, right? Second layer beneath that is, okay, I'm judging that person because I must have parts in me that I judge. The third layer is, I believe that if I don't judge that person, I will die. The fourth layer is, why do you believe that you would die? What did you do? What do you believe you did so that you would die if you stop judging? That's where the belief in sin is. Right? Without that belief in sin, that is the core of the ego thought system. Right? You are afraid it would sweep you away. Love would sweep you away from yourself. We believe we're the ego, and the love would sweep us away from it, because we would just go like this, I love you, and we would be back with God. Right? But we are afraid that it would sweep us away from ourselves, because we are so identified with that belief in sin and so identified with the ego, that we can't do it. Right? We're not ready to do it. And you are afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little, because you believe that magnitude lies in defiance and that attack is grandeur. You think you have made a world God would destroy, and by loving him, which you do, you would throw this world away, which you would. Therefore, you have used the world to cover your love. The world is there to cover the love. The body is there to cover the love. The judgment is there to not let the love come into our awareness. And we don't want the love come into awareness because we're so afraid it will sweep us away from ourselves and it will crush us into nothingness. We believe if we're in a grocery store with the person at the register, and we would stop judging, consciously or unconsciously, we're always unconsciously judging. We either judge or we experience complete, all-encompassing love. If we don't experience complete, all-encompassing love, we must be judging. There's no little judgment. Right? So we are at the register in the supermarket, or sitting around with friends, right? And we think that letting go of judgment would destroy us. It would crush us into nothingness. If that love that is there in this room would sweep over us like a tsunami. And it's so vast and completely unmanageable that our little self would be in utter panic. Right? That's why we can't let it go. That's why we can't let love just happen when we're in a room with other people. And all those things, it's good to see, okay, we're still judgmental. What else is new? We still want to attack. What else is new? Right? We still prefer attack to love. So what? Right? We still want to be upset. Now we know why we want all those things. And the ultimate reason why is because we still believe in our own guilt. Once the guilt is gone, the guilt is the cause for the fear of God. Right? Without that guilt, there's no fear. Because guilt projected out that attack. The guilt is now in the other person, and we're afraid it's going to come right back. That's where there's never can be any fear without guilt. So the guilt is really the problem, and the sin that comes before it, that belief in sin. Once that is gone, there's no more fear. There can't be fear of love. There can't be fear of love will crush us, because once the guilt is gone, we remember who we are. Right? We remember who we are as the Son of God. And we will not be afraid of love anymore. And that's the problem with Jesus also, It's the conundrum we're in. The curse comes from him, right? A pure symbol of pure love. But we feel so guilty, we believe in our own sinfulness so strongly that we don't believe what he says. We believe it to a certain extent. But not really. Not to the very end. Right? We believe if we follow Jesus, he will lead us to this precipice, and we will be crushed into nothingness. Right? That's why it's so important to work on that guilt that we believe in ourselves so strongly, that belief in sin in ourselves is so strong. There's a nice section, chapter 26, section 4 is called Where Sin Has Left. It's a beautiful, beautiful section. I'm just going to read it. Forgiveness is this world's equivalent to heaven's justice. It translates the world of sin into a simple world where justice can be reflected from beyond the gate behind which total lack of limits lies. Nothing in boundless love could need forgiveness. And what is charity within the world gives way to simple justice past the gate that opens into heaven. No one forgives unless he has believed in sin and still believes that he has much to be forgiven. Forgiveness thus becomes the means by which he learns he has done nothing to forgive. Forgiveness always rests upon the one who offers it until he sees himself as needing it no more. And thus is he returned to his real function of creating, which his forgiveness offers him again. Forgiveness turns the world of sin into a world of glory. Wonderful to see. Each flower shines in light, and every bird sings of the joy of heaven. There's no sadness and there's no parting here, for everything is totally forgiven. And what has been forgiven must join, for nothing stands between to keep them separate and apart. So it just describes, and it goes on and on, the world that we would see once sin is gone, right? The belief in sin is no longer there. There's this one. Sorry, let me see if I find this quickly. I think it's 78. Hold on. Yes, let miracles replace all grievances. So basically, this is a really good image. And it says here, each grievance stands like a dark shield of hate before the miracle it would conceal. And as you raise it up before your eyes, you will not see the miracle beyond. Yet all the while it waits for you in light, but you behold your grievances instead. Grievances, judgment, anger, upset, attack, right? It's all the same. So basically what it does is if we would have the miracle, which the miracle in this lesson is a symbol for the Christ, right? So there's the Christ here, and then the grievance is the dark shield, right? The dark shield of hate. And if this is let's say this is the observer, this is us. So we are the one that he's talking about. He says, each grievance stands like a dark shield of hate before the miracle it would conceal. So the dark shield of hatred, the upset, the anger, the attack, let's say the attack, right? The attack stands like a dark shield of hate before the miracle. It would conceal. The hatred conceals the miracle that is there, right? And as you raise it up before your eyes, you will not see the miracle beyond. So this is what we're looking at. We're always looking at the dark shield of hate. We're looking at our judgment, what we judge the other person. We're looking at the attack, right? We have just given our guilt to our brother. Yet all the while it waits for you in light, but you behold your hatred, your attack, your grievances instead. So we want the grievances to be there, right? Because if we would remove this, the shining Christ, the love of God, would be there, and we would have no protection against it. And while we believe in sin, we believe this would destroy us. It would completely and utterly destroy us, right? And he says in this second paragraph, he says, today we go beyond the grievances to look upon the miracle instead. We will reverse the way you see by not allowing sight to stop before it sees. We will not wait before the shield of hate, but lay it down and gently lift our eyes in silence to behold the Son of God. right? We are always waiting before the shield of hate. We judge. So here's the miracle. Here's our brother, right? And we see him, we see her, we see our brother with this shield of hate wrapped around it, that we have given it, right? We have given our brother this shield of hate, which is the attack. The attack, it takes our guilt, which is here, overlays it as a veil over the Christ in the other person. And we stop there, right? The Course says projection makes perception, and you cannot see beyond it. We can't see beyond our projections. It's impossible. We cannot see behind. We cannot see the Christ. We stop at our projections because we need them to be there, because we believe we will die. Our salvation is putting this guilt onto the Christ. That is our salvation. And the workbook always gives us a different way of looking at it, a push towards saying, okay, let's just a little bit think about, what if you would not stop there? What if you would go past your grievances? What would you see, right? We're not there yet. We can't, we're too afraid still, right? But it works with us like a coach. Okay, let's see what happens when you do it. He, the beloved, the beloved Son of God, our own love, which is the Christ, he waits for you behind your grievances. And as you lay them down, he will appear in shining light where each one stood before. For every grievance is a block to sight, and as it lifts, you see the Son of God where he has always been. He stands in light, but you were in the dark. Each grievance made the darkness deeper, and you could not see. Right, so this is lesson 78. And now we know why we need to wrap our brother in this grievance. Because if this would be gone, what is left is this bright, all-encompassing love that we believe would crush us into nothingness. That's why we believe this guilt that we give to our brother, this judgment, this anger, this attack, will save us from this love that is all-encompassing. And while we're with the ego, while we believe in our own sinfulness, we believe it will crush us and destroy us. And then in paragraph 4 in the Fear of Redemption, so chapter 13, we're back at chapter 13, section 3. Paragraph 4, you have built your whole insane belief system, everything we believe in. We have made this world, we have made our thoughts, our whole persona, all our problems, everything, our whole insane belief system, because we believe, because you think you would be helpless in God's presence. And you would save yourself from his love because you think it would crush you into nothingness, right? You're afraid it would sweep you away from yourself and make you little because you believe that magnitude lies in defiance and the attack is grandeur. And then in paragraph 6, it comes to the solution. It says, you must look upon your illusions and not keep them hidden, because they do not rest on their own foundation. In concealment, they appear to do so, and thus they seem to be self-sustained. Sin is the first brick, right? The belief in sin, built upon that is guilt, built upon that is attack, is fear. Now we have to have this whole defense system against love, right? In concealment, we believe our illusions rest on their own foundation. That means that it's a solid foundation. But forgiveness tells us that this belief in sin is impossible because separation cannot happen, right? Oneness cannot be divided. We can never separate from our source. That's why the belief in sin is a belief, and over time we can change it from this belief that it is true about ourselves to a more conceptual thing where we say this is a concept, right? It's not a true, I don't believe 100% it's true anymore. Maybe it's a concept. It is something I made up, and that we can change. So that is what he means when he says you must look upon your illusions and not keep them hidden. We look at the judgment and we realize there's a purpose to it. The purpose of attack, right, is to save me from love. And we must look upon this illusion of this belief in sin that causes me to be afraid of love. In concealment, they appear to do so, and thus they seem to be self-sustained. This is the fundamental illusion on which the others rest, right? The first illusion is the one that sin is real. That's the fundamental illusion. The others rest on that fundamental illusion that sin is real. Without sin, there can't be guilt. There can't be attack. There can't be fear. There can't be the world. Only love is there, and there's no more fear of that love. For beneath them and concealed as long as they are hidden is the loving mind that thought it made them in anger. We thought we sinned. We thought we were sinful. And the pain in this mind is so apparent when it is uncovered that its need of healing cannot be denied. Not all the tricks and games you offer it can heal it, for here is the real crucifixion of God's Son. So the real crucifixion of God's Son, which is us, is that we do not look at this core belief in our own sinfulness. We would rather see it outside. We'd rather not touch it. That's why no spirituality talks about it. We want to keep it concealed because of what it covers. It covers the love of God. Right? And once we realize all this works, we start thinking, it's like, wait a minute. If all this is true, I can start thinking about sin not as a truth about myself, but as something that is made up. The belief might still be very strong, but I can start thinking about it, start chipping away at it. That's the real crucifixion of God's Son, right? All those tricks that we keep the pain away from us, right? We're not afraid of the pain. We're afraid of what it covers. Covers that belief in sin. And that is the core of the ego thought system. And while we're so married to the ego, it is hard for us to accept that. That's why Jesus says, look with me at your ego. And each time we do that, we separate a little bit from it, and we lessen the belief in sin a little bit. Beneath all the grandiosity you hold so dear is your real call for help. So the real call for help is beneath that judgment, that anger, that grandiosity, right? That we're like better than everybody. Beneath that is our call for help and says, please help me. I believe I'm so guilty. I'm so sinful. And everybody has the same call. We're all in the very same boat. We're all afraid of love. We're doing all this to each other in the hope that we would not go to the guilt and discover that it's in me first, and second of all, it's not even there. It's all made up. And it takes a long time for us to get to that point where we realize it's made up. And from that point on, it becomes easy. Once we realize guilt is literally an illusion, not something that we deny and say, oh, it's an illusion. No, we really look at it with Jesus, and we slowly but surely come to the realization there's nothing there. That's when it gets better. On that note, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.